Heidi from Garden Crossings, and this is segment 5 of our tour through the shrub trial garden at Proven Winners Color Choice Shrub, Spring Meadow Nursery. This is their trial garden. So many beautiful shrubs. Again, it's just amazing the color that can be brought to a garden at any point in the season by using just shrubs. So we're going to take a walk through this garden here and just kind of highlight some of the beautiful plants. This is a more mature section of the garden, although there are some new introductions that are tucked in. So I'll stop and talk about the mature plants when they're mature, or I'll let you know that they're still in the growing state if they're not at the mature size yet. If there are any shrubs as you're walking through this garden with me that you're interested in, just jot them down and you can head on over to gardencrossings.com where we can get them shipped directly to your door. So we're going to start off with this segment with the famous, I'm sure you've seen this in many pictures if you are on the internet at all. This is the famous incredible hedge. This plant hedge is usually blooming around July with a giant big white blooms of the incredible flower. This is a smooth hydrangea. They bloom off of the new growth. So this hedge really could be trimmed at any point in the late fall or in the early spring. Now, I'm trying to figure out how they trim this. It looks like this might get trimmed back to about 2 foot. I don't know if they do that every year or if they do it every few years, but I am seeing trimming down in there down to about the 2 foot mark. This is a plant that is excellent to leave up through the winter, especially if you're in an area like we are here in Michigan where it's someone's hunting. If you're in an area like we are in Michigan, we're about a zone 6 here, and we do get snowfall. So this is so pretty as the snow just lands on these blooms. Or you can go ahead and trim them back, whichever is your garden style. But this hedge just pretty much encompasses the whole side of this garden here and is just gorgeous from summer well here into the fall. Incredible hydrangea gets about 4 foot tall and 4 foot wide. Likes to be grown in full sun to part shade locations. For those of you that are in the warmer climate, maybe part shade would be better, although for us here in the north, they do fabulous in the full sun. We do recommend keeping them watered as we would with any hydrangea, just to keep them from getting thirsty looking. Another plant in this garden that is gorgeous, and we've talked about this through some of the other segments we've done, but I'm going to talk about it if I see it in case this is the first time watching. This here is the Seven Suns flower, or Temple of Bloom. Gorgeous this time of year with these magenta bracts. In the spring it gets white flowers. In the winter interest is nice peeling bark. So many seasons of interest from the Temple of Bloom Heptacodium. As we look up at some of the trees in the garden, trees that are often seen in Michigan, you'll find a lot of poplars, maples, oaks. This here's a beautiful maple. Looks like it might be a tulip maple with its kind of yellow blooms. This here is a beautiful ginkgo, nice yellow foliage. And a lot of times, if we're lucky, we might even find some red maples, which really I think are vibrant out in the garden. So this garden is constantly changing. Things are getting replaced, dug out, trials are done, plants make the cut, plants don't make the cut. So things are always changing in the garden. So that's why sometimes things are very young and other things are very old. It just depends on where they're at in the trial. And I can't ever see this incredible hedge going away. It's just too known by people, but you never know. It could be gone tomorrow. This was a new plant in 2022, so I think this was the first year that this plant was introduced. This is actually a blueberry plant. So it seems weird because there's not a lot of edible plants out in this garden, but a blueberry was introduced, and this is Sky Dew. And look at the beautiful fall foliage, bright red leaves, gorgeous yellows. Look at it up against that black Sambucus there, or excuse me, that's a Physocarpus. Gorgeous contrast of color. This is summer wine in the background, summer wine, Physocarpus. But just look at those colors, how they play so nicely off of each other. When you're putting a garden together, I think that's one of the really important things to do is think about what that plant does in all seasons and how will it look with what you have it planted with. So this plant normally being green in the summer, the green up against the black looks pretty, but here now that it's fall, this just really they both set each other off really nicely. Here's another evergreen hedge. This is the Ilex Gem Box. Beautiful soft texture to it. It's about 3 foot tall. It was kind of trimmed in kind of a pyramid, but topped a squared off pyramid habit. There's 5 plants here, evergreen, nice texture. So if you're looking for an alternative to boxwood, gem box would be a nice alternative. We'll come in and take a closer look here at the foliage. So Ilex Gem Box is hardy in zones 5 to 9. It gets about 2 to 3 foot tall, which this is approaching 3 foot tall and 3 foot wide. Planted in full sun to part shade locations. And this is nice because you can trim it into like individual little balls if you want, a hedge, or any type of unique shape that you want to do. But a great plant for bordering out a garden. If you have a garden that you want kind of to look more formal, this is a great plant to use as a formal plant in the garden. Barberry Sunjoy Neo. This is a great plant during the summer. Super, super intense reddish orange foliage. Here in the fall, it kind of settles down just a little bit, but still a nice pop of color to introduce into the garden if you're wanting to add a little bit of a bright splash. A nice compact shrub, about 2 to 3 foot tall, 2 to 3 foot wide. 3 foot is probably even exaggerating the height a little bit there, but a nice, great plant. Hardiness, I think, is about a 5 to 8. So yeah, great foliage all summer long and here well into the fall. Another plant that I think we can't not talk about is this Viburnum here. So this is the Viburnum Tandoori Orange. Look at those beautiful orange berries on this plant. Like, that is definitely a full coverage plant of berries. The plant's about 6 or so foot tall and 6 or so foot wide, but just a gorgeous addition to the garden by bringing the berries in. Berries are great for the birds, so it's always nice to think about birds too when you're creating that winter interest. A lot of times you'll see Viburnum having red or blue berries, but these orange berries are so vibrant and just a welcome addition into this garden. Some more barberries here. This is a grouping of 5. This is the Barberry Mini Maroon, which has a deep, dark, almost black, near black, burgundy black foliage. There's a little contrast of color going on here with some little touches of orange and yellow, but this would be something that maybe would pair nicely next to Neo, where you get the bright orange with the more deep burgundy color. These have been trimmed into a nice mounding habit. Sunjoy Mini Maroon is probably about a 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide variety, and semi-ish evergreen. They're probably going to lose their leaves here in this zone 6 garden, but depending on where you're at, you may keep the leaves throughout the winter. More of that Tandoori orange is just looking fabulous in this garden. And I think it's really pretty how the plants, the trees behind it are just kind of creating a wall, but not a heavy wall, just a nice wall behind them with those drooping branches. I'm not sure exactly what type of trees those are, but they're really pretty in the space. Here we have the Spirea. This is the double play candy corn, which we've done videos on candy corn before, just individually. This here is a very mature specimen of candy corn, about 3 foot tall and 3 foot wide. This plant goes through a lot of transitions as it starts off in the spring and goes into the fall. So as it starts off in the spring, when when the leaves are just emerging, it is red hot or like vibrant orange. And then throughout the summer, that orange still stays pretty present, but there's other colorations of like a little bit more yellows and a little bit more greens that happen. And then now here in the fall, it's pretty green. It's not showing a lot of the vibrant colors that it shows during the spring and in the summer. Some of the new growth here, you can see there's a little bit of deep reddish burgundy going on. But really this plant is shining in the spring and into the summer. Some more butterfly bushes blooming, and another just giant bumblebee hanging out. This is the blue chip butterfly bush. This is blue chip. I was just verifying. This is butterfly bush blue chip. There's also blue chip junior, which I did not think this was junior because of the size of it. Blue chip is getting discontinued. So if you like the looks of this, but just on a little bit smaller habit, check out blue chip junior. So blue chip is still, I would say, calling this full bloom for late October. Gorgeous plant, attracts the butterflies. So if you're looking to attract butterflies to the garden, any type of butterfly bush or buddleia usually do a great job at attracting the butterflies. The blue chip, the Lo and Behold series, which blue chip is part of, is typically known for a little bit smaller flowers like we're seeing here, where the pugster butterfly bushes have much larger flowers, but not as many. So Lo and Behold, you're getting a lot of smaller flowers. Pugster, you're getting fewer, but larger flowers. And it's also fragrant too. Butterfly bush they smell so good. They remind me of when I was a kid. We used to have these scratch and sniff stickers, and I can't even tell you which one it reminds me of, but it's got a very beautiful fragrance to it. Behind me here, you're seeing this giant hedge. That is the full speed of hedge, the American pillar arborvitae. And if you are looking for something to block out your neighbors, that is the plant. It's fast growing. It's fairly columnar. Well, it's definitely columnar, but narrow and tall. So those are about 15 foot tall and probably about 6 foot wide there at the base. They are planted approximately 6 foot apart, and you can see the consistency of the row. Not super dense feeling because they are a narrow evergreen, but definitely doing the job of keeping the neighbors' view out and creating a beautiful privacy and a natural park-like feeling in this park-like garden. If you're needing an evergreen ground cover, here is Microbia. This is Celtic Pride. Very low growing. I mean, it's probably not even 12 inches off the ground. And as far as the spread, I can't tell where one starts and one begins, but I believe the spread on this is about 5 to 6 foot. So just a nice evergreen, keeps the weeds down because it's covering fully. And it's really, they're creating it here as a border with the hydrangeas there in the backdrop. So it's an excellent border to this garden, just giving it a solid evergreen feel. Here we have the Illuminati Tower. This is a mock orange. I just love how the branches are so like upright and the leaves come off of them. The texture this plant adds to the garden, I think, is so beautiful. The yellow foliage isn't bad neither. This plant gets about 3 to 4 foot tall and about 3 to 4 foot wide. In the summer, actually the early spring, it's adorned with beautiful white flowers that are highly fragrant. So just a beautiful fragrant spring blooming plant. And the fall texture is so unique. This plant is hardy in zones 4 to 7. Deer resistant, so if you're looking for a deer resistant shrub, this is a great addition. Full sun to part shade is where it likes to be planted. This here is a grouping of 5 of them, so it's something you certainly could plant as a specimen in the garden or in a grouping. But if I was planting, I don't have this much space, so this certainly wouldn't be a bad plant to use as a specimen. Next, what they're using as kind of a border plant here is the Ducia Yuki Snowflake, which this one has kind of a weeping type habit. It's only about 2.5 to 3 foot tall. It's starting to take on some really deep burgundy fall color. So not necessarily one that I would say is going to be the best for fall color, but it does have some uniqueness to it. Yuki Snowflake, usually around June or so, will get beautiful little white flowers that just cover the plant. So if you're looking for something that's more on the compact side, that is just loaded with beautiful white flowers, Yuki Snowflake is a great great plant to bring that to the garden. There's a few different Ducia we carry. Cherry Blossom, which has a little bit more of a pinkish hue to the flower. And then we also have Yuki, not Yuki, but Chardonnay Pearls Ducia, which is going to be more of a chartreuse green foliage with beautiful white flowers. So a couple different options when it comes to Ducia, different plants, all about the same habit and size, but just depends if you're looking for more foliage interest or what color flowers you're looking for. Here's some hydrangeas, still looking fabulous. These are Firelight Tidbit. So this is a mature size plant of Firelight Tidbit, about 3 foot tall, which usually it's going to say it's about 2 foot, but this one here is about 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide, so a very small size hydrangea. But just check out this massive flower coverage. Like, looking at it from this angle, from top down, there's just hardly any foliage to be seen because the flower coverage here on Firelight Tidbit is just amazing. Firelight Tidbit is hardy in zones 3 to 8, so a very hardy hydrangea. Usually it will start blooming somewhere around July or August, and you can see this color has lasted well into the fall here in October. Bobo has always been kind of my go-to favorite, but I think because Firelight Tidbit is just enough smaller than Bobo, this might become my new favorite. The other thing too to point out on Firelight Tidbit is each of the little florets here is just a little bit bigger than what Bobo is. So this might be a little bit better if you like to dry your hydrangeas. These flowers might dry just a little bit nicer. Let's see what else we have. So this is actually a grouping of 3 of the newer hydrangeas. So we've got the Firelight Tidbit that we just talked about. And then in front of it here, we have the Little Lime Punch. Little Lime Punch will get about 3 to 4 foot tall and wide. Another hardy hydrangea. Usually this one will bloom in July or August. And you can see here late in October, it's still really holding its color nicely. Starting to turn a little brown, but the tips are still pretty fresh and full of magenta flowers. The flowers here are a little bit larger on the Little Lime Punch than what they are on the Firelight Tidbit. So to kind of show you side by side, both great plants, just depends on what your space allows. Next to it is the new Pufferfish Hydrangea. So this one was beautiful end of July, beginning of August. It's still pretty. We don't want to hurt its feelings, but it's definitely past its prime. So the Pufferfish is about 4 foot tall and 4 foot wide. It gets the beautiful white flowers during the summer. And the thing that kind of sets Pufferfish apart is on the tips of each of the flowers. So we'll come in closer and just show you the little, what we'll call spits of blooms. And all the tips of each of these flowers just has that little tuft there. And that's kind of what sets the Pufferfish Hydrangea apart. So really a very gorgeous plant during the summer. Doesn't really color up great in the fall, but it's that unique flower form. That is why Pufferfish is what it is. Here we have tiny Quickfire. It's kind of nice having all these hydrangeas close together so you can kind of see them one right after another. So there's Quickfire has been discontinued. There's Little Quickfire, which was in one of our previous videos, and here we have Tiny Quickfire. So Tiny Quickfire is about 3 foot tall, 3 foot wide. It was blooming earlier this summer, but still it's thrown out a couple of these really bright, vibrant fall blooms. So this gives you an idea of what the color looks like when it's more in season. It's this beautiful magenta color. The flowers here are a little bit smaller than those on, for sure, Quickfire, because Quickfire has really big flowers. Even Little Quickfire, the flowers are bigger than Tiny Quickfire. It's a pretty full bloom, although it would still be considered more of like a lacy or lace cap, even though it's doing a good job of still fully covering the insides with the florets. So Little Quickfire. So to round out this segment, we're going to talk about the sweet summer love clematis, which clearly is not blooming at this point in the season. But the reason why I wanted to stop here is I just wanted to show you the denseness, the habit of this plant. So if I'm guessing, there's probably 3 of them planted here on this trellis. This trellis is, well, taller, as tall as I can reach. So maybe 6, 7, well, I can reach 6 foot, probably 7, 7.5 foot tall. But just a nice dense full clematis. This is a summer blooming clematis. The beautiful thing with sweet summer love, we'll put a picture up on the screen, is the color transformation this plant goes through. So the flowers open up as a deep purple. There's red shades on it depending on where the flower is at its bloom cycle. And you can just see, can you imagine all these little white dots you're seeing? Those are all the seed pods of the flowers. Can you just imagine this plant full of blooms? And the beautiful thing too with sweet summer love, it is so fragrant. It smells like kind of a sweet vanilla scent. So if you're looking to add like some vertical interest to the garden with a nice scent, sweet summer love clematis. This is Heidi from Garden Crossings.